It's my pleasure to introduce to you Chief Ackermann from the Glen Rock Police Department, who has taken his role as chief to a new level and has helped work with us in the schools together to craft an immediate response to some of the difficulties we've been seeing with our youth. So, Chief.
Thank you very much. I actually hate talking on microphones, so can you hear me in the back? Can you hear me on the TV? All right, we're doing good. My name's Dean Ackermann. I've been a police officer in Glen Rock for 31 years. I've been a police officer in the state of New Jersey for 34 years. In my career, the only changes I've seen in drugs is what they're using. When I first came on the job in the 80s, we were dealing with cocaine. When the late 90s came, your club drugs came out, your ecstasy and all the other things that were cooked up in someone's basement. And by the time we hit 2005, 2006, we saw a resurgence of heroin. And now all of a sudden we're starting to pick up LSD this past year. The whole idea of the community letter began when Councilman Huskings found a letter that was done 7 years ago. And he brought it to myself, the mayor, and they asked me to come on board, and we worked with the Board of Education, the Superintendent of Schools, and the HSA to put together a message. And I want to be very specific about something. The target audience was the parents and the student body. But if you really think that this is just a teenage issue, you are absolutely wrong. Whether you're 14, 40, or 74, substance abuse knows no limits. While most people view the police department's role as arresting drug offenders, that's not our only role. We operate as the first responders to all medical calls. We are constantly going into people's homes and watching them kill themselves one day at a time. We also deal with the collateral damage of the family members who are trying to care for an addicted individual. We have many teens in this community who are making the right decisions for themselves. We need to empower them, and we need to empower the other teens to make the right decision. We also have a sad situation, and I've seen it time and time again, where we have teenagers who are trying to care for an addicted parent. Do not think of this as just a teenage issue. This is a community issue, and it discriminates against no one. I put together, and this is the only thing I'm actually going to read, sometimes the facts that you don't want to hear are the facts that you need to know. So I put together a few of them. First of all, the fictional TV, Mayberry was a fictional TV place. It doesn't live in the real world, and Glen Rock is not Mayberry. The problems of the world are here just as the way they are everywhere else. If you believe that Glen Rock residents of any age do not have easy access to drugs such as heroin and LSD, you are wrong. If you don't believe that the Glen Rock Police Department has brought back no less than 9 individuals from drug overdoses by using Narcan, you're wrong. If you don't believe that Glen Rock sits along a major drug corridor, you are absolutely wrong. If you don't believe that children as young as middle school age are engaging in texting, you are wrong. If you don't believe that there are private homes where children can regularly gain access to alcohol, you are wrong. If you believe that the police or the school can monitor what's happening in private homes, you are wrong. If you believe that your children are not aware of most of these facts, you are completely wrong. Most of them probably know more about it than you do and have an app or something on their smartphone to show it to you. It's my privilege tonight to introduce 3 people who are going to have the bulk of our program. The first is Prosecutor Grewal. He became acting prosecutor shortly before I became chief, and he became our permanently appointed prosecutor shortly after I became chief. He was at my swearing in, I was at his, and he has offered me a great deal of support and resources for this community consistently since he has taken over as prosecutor. You have Detective Donnie Ingrassalino. Many years and a few gray hairs ago when I was a detective, he was a young undercover detective for the Bergen County Prosecutor's Office. He has done his share of street-level drug work, he has worked federal task forces, and he is a wealth of information. As we grow older, we no longer work undercover.
That's true.
Another story. And the last person I want to introduce is a person with probably one of the most courageous individuals I have ever known, is Mrs. Gail Cole. She lost her son to heroin addiction, and she has the strength to come here and share her message with you, and I encourage you all to listen to it. Thank you.
I can't yell like Dean. My name is Grewal. I'm the Bergen County Prosecutor. It's a privilege for me to be here for two reasons. One, the heroin and opioid and drug issues that we'll talk about are a priority for me, and it's an effort that we are trying to undertake at the office to find different collaborative approaches to tackle this problem. That's first. But second, I'm also here as a Glen Rock resident, as the father of three young girls who will enter the school system, or two who are in the school system, but will eventually find their way to the high school system. And having seen what's out there, I'm afraid. And so I'm doubly dedicated to addressing the drug issue across the county for that reason. Ordinarily, we go to a lot of these presentations around the county, and the parents' presentations are the most poorly attended. I can't tell you how many schools we've been to, how many community centers we've been to, where there's about 10 people. And so it's really encouraging to see the turnout tonight that's here. Usually when we do this presentation, I'll speak for a few minutes to give an overview of what we're seeing in the county. Then Donnie usually presents a presentation on the different pathways to addiction. And then we ask Gail to share her story. But we speak each year to about 10,000 ninth graders throughout the county. And that's part of our presentation. If it's not Gail, it's another parent who shares a similar story. And the unfortunate part is that it's not unique to Allendale, it's not unique to Gail. It's a problem that's all throughout our county. It affects rich, poor, highly educated, uneducated, males, females. It's in every pocket of the county. And so one of the things that we've tried to do at the prosecutor's office is share the data that we have to help remove that stigma, to show that it's in Franklin Lakes, it's in Glen Rock, so we could talk about it, and that parents can use that information to have these honest conversations with their children. Because unless you talk about prevention and key in on the different paths to addiction that Donnie will talk about, this is a problem that we're not going to stop from a law enforcement perspective, right? It's cliche, and we hear it on TV all the time that we're not going to arrest our way out of this problem, but it's true. And so what I want to do is I'll just set the table a little bit for Donnie's presentation, and before he goes, I want to talk to you just for a couple minutes about the different initiatives that we've undertaken that are not really traditionally law enforcement type responses to this problem, but which we think are working. And what we do need is your help to attend events like this, to start the conversations at home, to ensure that your kids are armed with the knowledge about the perils of addiction and the different pathways to addiction. So I just want to share with you a map of the county. This is 2016. In 2016, we had 308 total overdoses. And when I say it's in every pocket of the county, it literally is in every pocket of the county. It's in every one of our communities. These are total overdoses. In 2016, we had 87 overdose fatalities. And again, we put this information out on social media so you could use it. We update it daily. Each day when there's an overdose, and it feels like each day there is an overdose or a Narcan save, we put that information out just to put it in people's faces to help remove that stigma so people will talk about it. We talked about Narcan. If it weren't for Narcan, that 87 number would be far, far higher. Narcan is now available over the counter. Family members can buy it, friends can buy it, and they can use it. Law enforcement in the county carry it. The prosecutor's office supplies it to all law enforcement in the county. And what it is it's naloxone, and it's a nasally administered spray. And if you haven't seen someone revive from Narcan, it's truly remarkable. Somebody was mentioning, I think Gail was mentioning how when someone who's addicted goes to buy drugs, and we don't want to beat up on Patterson, but we have to. That's where our kids are going. They come back and they want to use right away. We've had a number of cases where the kids have overdosed while they're driving, where they, in an unfortunate situation, killed another person because they've overdosed. And we have it on video in one of these cases, and it's remarkable. The person is administered 2 doses of Narcan through the nostril, immediately revived, and their first reaction is, "You ruined my high." They have no sense of time, space, but it's "you ruined my high," and they lash out at the law enforcement officer who just really saved their life. In 2016, we had 180 Narcan saves in the county. So that 87 number would have been far, far higher if law enforcement didn't respond in time and administer Narcan. I'd like to say that the numbers in 2017 are better, but they're not. What we're seeing is probably the same number of overdoses. We're seeing slightly less fatalities because there's more Narcan being deployed across the county. And again, this number doesn't take into account emergency rooms. It doesn't take into account family members administering Narcan at home. It doesn't take any of that into account. So clearly it's happening much more than the 180 saves by law enforcement across the county. And you see that the numbers are higher on the border towns. If you look in the western part of the county, that's not because there are more drug users in Elmwood Park or Garfield, or because there's more drug users in Mahwah or in North Arlington and Lyndhurst in the south. That's because people go down that 21 corridor to Newark, and they want to use in North Arlington as soon as they get back into Bergen County. Or they go into Patterson and they want to use in Elmwood Park. Or they go into Suffern and they want to use in Mahwah as soon as they get over the border. So far, year to date, we've had about 150, which is on track for the same number as last year. Again, all over the county. Our fatalities are slightly less than this time last year. We've had 21 so far. This time last year we had 44, but these numbers spike up and down. There's no sort of pattern to them that you can measure this time year to date to last year to date. And the Narcan saves this year were on pretty much the same pace to have about 180, 187 Narcan saves if these numbers hold. So clearly it's everywhere. And so what are we doing about it as a prosecutor's office? We've gotten completely out of our comfort zone. We're not locking people up. The days where you'll have large-scale sweeps of heroin users and we would put their pictures in the paper to embarrass them, they're gone. We're not putting the pictures of any low-level drug offenders in the paper to embarrass them because there's enough stigma already associated with this disease. What we're doing is we're trying to be more creative about our approach, and we're working with mental health professionals. We're working with Bergen Regional Medical Center, which has 87 or 84 detox beds right here in this county, which is one of the largest detox facilities in the country. We're working with volunteer organizations like Care Plus and Children's Aid and Family Services. You know, people who are experts in providing help. And what we did recently is we undertook an initiative which we called Operation Helping Hand, where we went out there, we went to Patterson, our detectives, Donnie and others, including 17 municipal departments who participated in that, went to Patterson looking for Bergen County residents buying drugs. And we could spend all day there picking up Bergen County residents, but we only have so many people and so much time and so many holding cells at our facility. But we spent a week there. And in 1 week's time, we arrested 42 individuals just focusing on Bergen County. And we brought them back to our office in Paramus, at our prosecutor's office in Paramus. And we had on site recovery specialists, individuals who had been clean for a period of time, who have certification to speak with individuals who are addicted. We had other professionals at our office. And after the arrestees were processed for their possession charges, they were given an option. not in lieu of criminal charges, but in addition to criminal charges. We told them, we have somebody here who could help you. We forced an intervention because we didn't want to wait for another overdose. We didn't want to wait for another fatality. We forced an intervention, and those recovery specialists spoke to those individuals. And the 42 individuals that we arrested that week, 30 of them went into a treatment program. So 15 went in the first week, 15 went in a week or so later because of the persistence of the recovery specialists. 12 relapsed, but our recovery specialists who we work with from Children's Aid and Family Services are stalking them. They are so passionate about helping these people break this cycle of Narcan save, overdose, arrest, fatality. They're so passionate about it that they're staying in touch with them and they're helping them. And when they're ready to seek help again, we'll be there for them, and we'll have those options lined up, whether it's detox at Bergen Regional, whether it's intensive outpatient treatment. So clearly, we're going way outside of our comfort zone. And the final piece of it is 3 police departments in the county are participating in an initiative we called HEART. It's called the Heroin Addiction Recovery Team, where we're having walk-in hours at 3 police stations across the county, up in Mahwah, Paramus, and Lyndhurst as pilot programs, where people can walk in. There's a directive for me on record that's saying that if they turn in paraphernalia or personal use quantities of drugs, they won't get prosecuted. Instead, we'll try to get them help. These are the types of initiatives that are going to work. In addition to that, it's the education piece. So I want to turn it over to Donnie. Donnie and our detectives go into pretty much every 9th grade class in the county to talk to your children, and for the teachers here, your students, about the different paths to addiction. Because if we could catch them early, we could prevent them, again, from getting into that rut of overdose, Narcan save, and potentially fatality.
First, you know, we're all a lot of us are parents here. I've got a child in the high school. I have one who's gone through the high school, and I have a daughter in the middle school. And one thing that I can't stress enough is, you know, ask yourself how you'd feel if something horrible happened to your child, and you later found out that your child's friend's parents kind of knew what he or she was doing, but they didn't tell you. Every time your kids look at you and say, "Mom, Dad, don't be a rat," think about that, because I've certainly had that said to me by my son. But my advice, and I think a lot of you, I'm sure, heed it, be a rat. And if you hesitate, ask yourself how you'd feel if you see somebody else's child doing something that perhaps they don't know about. How would you feel if something happened to that child and you didn't say anything because you wanted to be cool or you don't want to be the rat? Be the rat, because that's one of the ways that we as a community can really help each other. Because I know a lot of people are wondering right now, well, what do we do now? Well, we're a community. You have places you can go for help, but we really can help each other. So please, please, your kids are going to say, "Don't be a rat." Think about the potential repercussions of keeping quiet if you know somebody's child is doing something they shouldn't. Because we wish we could see our kids all the time. They're often out of sight, but they might be in somebody else's sight. So let's all help each other, and I think that's one thing we can do. Now, one thing that I've talked to people about, and this is going to be a question for either Donnie or Grabir or the chief, is a lot of people laugh at the idea that giving your kid letting your 10th grader have a couple of drinks in the basement, it's a harmless thing. But from I've gone to a few of these sessions, and the sense that I get is that while there's not a direct chemical correlation between drinking, pot, heroin, but once you open the door to your child, learning what it feels like to have some artificial way of feeling a little happier, perhaps they're anxious, perhaps they're depressed. It seems to me that once you open that door, and as a parent you say, you know, it's okay, he's just having a drink, or she's having a drink in my basement, and perhaps you're even allowing some of their friends to have drinks. Once you open that door, I feel as if you're opening the door potentially much further. You've now helped your child enter a place that he or she may not have found. We all know that Glen Rock is an amazing town. We might even see it sometimes as Mayberry, but it's okay to acknowledge the fact that not everything about our town is perfect, and that makes us even better. So I think this was a great first step. Again, thanks to everybody for coming and helping out. And,